A brief drop in crime this summer in Richmond was followed by a spike in shootings. 14 people shot over just 5 days last month.
We deserve justice. We deserve change. We deserve answers.
When you kill somebody, you do damage to the families. And think about they do damage to you too.
Last summer, CBS 6 hosted a town hall called Stop the Violence. An 8-person panel came together to answer your questions and work towards solutions. And now, 1 year later, we're bringing together a group of 5 Richmonders who have seen and felt the impact of violence firsthand. Does Richmond have a gun violence problem? What's being done to address it? And what would these individuals like to see going forward? Tonight, we share their voices. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here today. As I mentioned earlier, a couple of weeks ago, when we knew we got the second quarter and thus the first half year statistics for crime, major crime in Richmond, we had a feeling, we could tell they're trending in the right direction, modestly better quarter to quarter and then year to year. In the last 6 days, we've seen a spasm of gun violence, 14 people shot, 2 fatalities. It feels a little different now that we're sitting here. But that said, we're going to go forward and talk about what you all are seeing, what you see on the ground, and especially how you feel in your neighborhoods. So with that said, I want to start with you, Mark Whitfield. 5 years ago, you suffered a tragedy that should be entirely unimaginable. And I think today, 5 years later, it's probably a wound that never really heals. But I want to ask you, since you've been an activist ever since your beautiful 9-year-old daughter, Markia, was shot and killed on a playground in the middle of the day, caught in the crossfire between people perhaps settling a score, what are you seeing? Does Richmond have a gun violence problem today?
Yeah, a big one. It's a big one. I feel like it's getting worse every day is like it's another one.
I'm Mark Whitfield, and I'm part of the MSD Chaos organization.
I always ask, like, where the numbers come from, where they getting statistics from, how they keeping tabs on these violent crimes, who's really sitting back, notating, like, all right, this, that. Like, we want to know the facts on the numbers, because if you're living in the middle of it, it looks different from what you see on paper. It feels different than what you see on paper. So it's like, which one you gonna go with, the paper or the facts, the one you can really see and feel?
So it sounds like you look out your window and you're saying, no, I'm not seeing these numbers. Violent crime was down 3% over quarter to quarter, or year to year. Property crime up slightly, 4% year to year. Homicide and rape took big drops, even aggravated assault dropped some. But you're not feeling that.
No, not at all. I don't know, like, I would like for our elected officials and people like that to just come take a step in our shoes. Come spend a day, what we call it, the hood. Come spend a day out there, like, with the people really struggling at, where we hurting at, and see what we go through on a day-to-day basis. Like, hear the gunshots. Don't just come after the fact, because that's what I feel like. We are in the streets, especially us black men. They only come when we're victims. You come to scrape us up off the ground, but nobody's really there to tap in to see how can they help us. Like you say, we could sit around right now and talk about it, what we're gonna do tomorrow about it. We just talking, but ain't nothing getting done. And time is of essence because people leaving us every day by gun violence. Somebody gets shot today, tomorrow. We can just sit here and talk about that person the next day. We just keep adding more victims to the victim club, and that's not cool.
Charles Willis, United Communities Against Crime, you've been to way too many scenes, way too many neighborhoods where people are hurting, like Mark. What do you see? Does Richmond have a gun violence problem?
Most definitely. We have a gun violence crisis.
Charles Willis, Executive Director of United Communities Against Crime.
Mark is extremely correct. Hit the nail through the board. Mark's tragedy, I was part of that scene that day. My granddaughter was out there. the running, the gunfire, the smoke, the scene at the hospital, the fact that the stereotype of Afro-American males, where they stereotyped Mark at the MCV hospital. They handcuffed the father, thinking that he was just someone irate, not hearing him saying that's his daughter. I witnessed all of that. But because of some of the relationships with VCU and the police department, I was able to say, look, that's the father. That's the father. So we not way too many. We have a crisis, and it needs to be dealt with the same way that we are dealing with the homeless crisis. The homeless crisis, Richmond took a stab at it. Sorry for that use of word, but they took a plug at it and put a lot of dollars and resources towards it. We need those just as much for this gun violence.
Because it sounds like it's a multifaceted problem. It's not just, hey, put more police on the streets or patrol certain neighborhoods. It's a cultural, it's endemic. It's built into
One of the
it.
things Mark said that is very interesting, and as long as I've been out here advocating, I never thought about that, Mark, so I applaud you for your comments, was that our elected officials, not to shake hands, not to be seen, not to be notified, not with no security detail. You need to come and shadow Mark. You need to come and shadow these gentlemen here. With no cameras, no nothing. Just shadow us one night. Stay with Dave one night and hear that gunfire.
I think Cory Booker did that in Newark, the current U.S. Senator. He was kind of famous for he's walking the walk, or at least trying to do it, and there weren't cameras around as far as I know. Pastor Gilliam, Richmonders involved in strengthening our communities, you've been to scenes too. What are you seeing about the gun violence problem?
Similar to what these brothers are saying, it is an issue that's so multifaceted, and that really requires a totality of the resources that we can put towards it from our elected officials. But I think also there has to be, community accountability as well.
I'm Pastor Marvin Gilliam Jr. I am the pastor of Mount Carmel Baptist Church located in Church Hill, and the co-president for Richmonders involved in strengthening our communities.
There has to be community involvement. Like, how are we taking care of one another? In our case, we're a group of churches from across the region, that come together, and seeing gun violence is a major issue, and have been working towards proposing solutions, to our elected officials. But one of the things recently, our church is in Church Hill, right up the hill from Ashley Oaks, where there was a lot of gunfire back in April. A couple of young men were killed over there, and one of the things that next week I came in and I told our church was like, we can advocate, we gotta advocate, we have to talk to our public officials, but we have to be, as community members, willing to put our feet in the street and to show up and hang out with Mark, hang out with Dave, hang out with Mr. Willis, hang out with Maurice, and like be in those places and spaces, not just to offer our prayer, to offer our presence, because I think that presence really does make a difference in that aspect. Like, we really need community to show up, yes, to go to City Hall, but we need community also to go to the hood.
And when you say community, do you mean your neighbors, or do you mean like the people who live across town, people who are in City Hall, people who are in different parts of the city?
Everybody.
I mean, we need everybody. I'm a former Richmond Public Schools teacher. Actually, I met Mr. Willis when I was teaching at the former George Wythe High School, and one of the things that was always apparent after a student was killed, or after there was gun violence in the community, family members killed, kids were coming to school, and it was affecting how they were even able to focus and learn in the school building, So they coming in hungry, they ain't slept all night because they hearing gunshots, and we're asking about, we worried about SOL scores, and it's like, man, these babies trying to survive. They're really trying to make it from one day to the next, and that was one of the things that was really challenging. And one of the things I actually, even early on in my teaching career, had to learn to realize once I started talking to the students, understanding where they were coming from, it was like, all right, I got to figure out new ways to support them and understand that they coming in here tired. It ain't because they don't want to learn, it's because they had a rough night. you know, and they're leaving. This is the only time they're gonna be able to get some sleep. So it's like, how do we give grace? How do we find ways to support, you know, our young people in the community? How do we make opportunities for our young men? I think, you know, one of the things that the city, you know, has done a lot of and focused on is like youth programs. And I think that is a phenomenal thing. But what happens when kids age out of those programs? What happens to the 22 to 23 to 24-year-old that may not have had the best experience in education and may not have the skills? Like, how do we help support those individuals so now they don't have to turn to the streets and turn to violence as a way to just like survive and make the ends meet? Like, how do we give them skills? So I love one of the program that Real Life is been working on in Hopewell, and hopefully is implemented here in Richmond very soon, group violence intervention. That's like what their focus is on. Like, how do we help these guys get skills? How do we help these individuals, you know, find safety so that they can get what they need in order to live productive and fruitful lives that contribute to society as opposed to take away.
And giving them hope too. Now, David Bay, Trauma Healing Response Network, you've come into scenes, you've come into communities that are hurting, that are in pain. They need resources. You provide those resources. Is it, in some ways, it's after the fact, and we seem to be talking about let's get in there before the fact. But what are you seeing in terms of the gun violence problem, crisis in Richmond?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it is crisis, and it is actually, like we said, it's firearm death and injury.
I'm David Bay. I'm the director of Rise Up RVA and the outreach specialist for the Trauma Healing Response Network.
Gun violence is a national problem. Yeah, Richmond, we have a problem. We've had a problem, and those people that have been in the city or are relative to the city going back to the 90s, a lot of people are saying that the consistency of it looks like the mid to early 90s in Richmond. Those of you that are from and have been around.
When we were kind of the murder capital per
Right.
capita of the country.
Yeah, but we want to make sure we frame the narrative accurately when we say firearm death and injury, because that way we know we're focusing on the numbers that we see, and we're also speaking on behalf of our specific communities. Gun violence is a national problem in rural areas, in white communities, in Asian communities. It's a national problem, but when we say firearm death and injury, we're actually speaking on, you know, the fact that we know these are firearms and we're getting injured by them and we're using them as a result of still dealing with after the pandemic, like I was telling you, Bill, where the uptick of firearm purchases in this state skyrocketed past numbers that Virginia had ever seen before. To answer your question, what are we seeing and what are we doing? We have ongoing programs. The Trauma Healing Response Network is over 33 organizations, nonprofits, advocates, mentors, and educators. And you know, to what the brother was saying, we have programs like the Broken Men Foundation and the Broken Men Youth Academy. That's teenagers from junior high school, middle school, up to, I think, 27 years old. They mentor, they educate, and they build relationships. So like, what are we seeing and what are we doing? Yeah, we respond to firearm injuries and firearm deaths, and we come in and we provide resources to the families that are in crisis as a result. But the day before that happened, the week before that happened, the month before that happened, we're in that very community trying to build relationships. So we really are focused on relationship building, because organization of over 30 people, 30 organizations, a lot of the firearm deaths and injuries end up being somebody we already had a relationship with, somebody we already knew, somebody's child we already educated in the school system or had a relationship with.
Well, and talking about those relationships, Maurice Washington with Real Life, recovery from everyday addictive lifestyle, how do you reach someone who might be at risk of, either at risk of being a victim of gun violence or especially somebody at risk of sort of committing firearm injury or death? It seems to be about relationships.
Most definitely. A lot of what everybody's saying today are hitting on it as well. But yeah, that's what we do. We identify the people who are at risk of gun violence. And that's what needs to happen more is identifying those who are at risk and then coming to them and seeing what they need and intervening.
Maurice Washington, Violence Prevention Coordinator and Life Coach with Real Life.
There's also, you know, groups in this city, gangs that, you know, whether some people say that there aren't, you know, there is in the city, you know, and
Perhaps not the national ones that we're familiar with, but more of a localized group of people who are in it together.
most definitely, it's definitely different than, you know, the West Coast, the traditional Bloods and Crips, but it's definitely, you know, people that grew up together or just, you know, it could be 2 or 3 people consider themselves hanging out with each other, you know, and consider themselves a group of people or a so-called clique gang, you know, but
How do you reach them? How do you make somebody, and I'm guessing we're talking about anybody from 16 to 20, maybe 22 or 3, why would they pay attention to you? Why wouldn't they just say, he's an old square or something, just, you know, it's not relevant to me. How do you get them?
that's one of the challenges in my job is actually building connections, but that's our main goal. So, you know, once we identify someone who is at risk, you know, we go knock on their door and let them know that you're at risk of gun violence, you're at risk of shooting somebody or being shot.
And will they deny it at first? Like, what are you talking about? I don't own a gun. I don't run with that crowd.
Yeah, a lot of them do. You know, a lot of guys, when we come to them, they already know. Like most of the time, like it's a situation going on with them, and their antennas go up immediately. It's like, okay, they know they're into something right now, and that's what we tune into. You know, we have different avenues of doing that, but once we do that, you know, we try to, once we identify the people who may be shot or may be doing the shooting, we go to their door and let them know that. But that's one of the initial responses sometimes is, how do you know, why you think that I'm involved in something? I'm not doing nothing. And my immediate response is, you know, we just, you know, we have people that identify situations and your name, you know, came up as somebody that's at risk, but I'm not here for that. We let them know automatically, you know, we're only here to help. We're only here to connect you to resources. I tell them, you know, straight up, I don't want to know anything that you got going on. You know, I'm just here to see how I can help you. If you need somebody to talk to, connect you to therapy or whatever. But you know, we start off with a simple meal. I ask them, you know, can I take you out to eat next week or today? Or if you're not doing nothing, we grab something to eat, and it's just my whole sole purpose is building a relationship with them. If you build a relationship with the guys or the groups of individuals that are at risk of gun violence, either being shot or shooting somebody, then you know you're a positive person in their life that a lot of those guys don't have.
Because you can connect with them because you've been through that yourself. How did you get involved on the wrong path?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, a lot of this is deeply rooted, you know. Like myself, you know, I don't have a rough upbringing as some of these guys I'm even dealing with, but I did start, you know, getting into drugs and selling drugs and playing with firearms and, you know, fighting and just, you know, doing in that lifestyle. A lot of it's lifestyles, you know, it's perpetrated through the music, through just the lifestyle, the culture, you know, out here in the streets and just surviving, you know. So
it's normalized, basically. It's just there.
My atmosphere, you know, just fell into it.
Well, so let's go from that, because that sounds like when you reach somebody like that, you know, in that small part of this fabric of society, you can have an impact. What do we see that is working? That, to me, sounds like something that's working. What else are we seeing? Is it, you know, police programs, police patrols? Is it, and I suspect it's going to be everything altogether that we need. But what do you see that works? Charles, let's start with you. What are you seeing that works? You know, one-on-one contact obviously seems to have a huge impact, I would guess.
Mine is definite violence prevention and conflict resolution. You have.
What does that look like, though? What does that mean? Because it sounds fancy, but it's like, why Why is a kid going to suddenly, do I need, conflict resolution?
A lot of times, I say that to us, but they don't know what it is. When Brother Hill steps in prior to a situation happening, that's conflict resolution. That's violence prevention. Dave going, providing resources, checking up from the neck up, pop-ups in the community, whereas you normally wouldn't see anything happen. It's not on a holiday. It's not on a traditional day where you would see something happen. But Dave and his organization popping up in Gilliam Court and just pulling a grill out, putting some music out there, just drawing folks in and just having a courageous conversation. Or if you don't want to have a courageous conversation, you do that a couple of times without any notice, without any, we coming out there, they'll know if you're real or not. And then the next time when you come, well, say, I don't want to know what you're doing or what you got going on. Come on, let's get a bite to eat. Now, one thing, I don't care what race you are, you're gonna be hungry. Even dogs are hungry. Cats, they wanna lick some milk. So everybody can relate to feeding. But then once just like Jesus did, he saw the multitude that was hungry. The disciples talked about how hungry they were. But Jesus had a word for them. We have a word. We're not Jesus, but we have a word for the community. But we know we have to feed you first. And it may not be food all the time. It may be the fact that you're $25 away from paying your light bill. Well, don't come calling me. I only have $25 all the time, but we may have a resource to help you with that. It may be the fact that you're getting ready to be convicted, not convicted, but evicted from your household. Then pastor has resources that he can point you in the way of eviction diversion. It may be that the fact that you're working all day and you don't have a place where you don't have a babysitter, you can't afford for your child to go. Brother Mark has a program where he's dealing with children, where you can bring the resource. So that's the part where I see right there that we.
Let me jump in real quick, because everything that he just said are things that we actually are doing and have done and have systems in place. We talk about root causes. Root causes always tie back to health issues. I mean, we're talking about financial health, we're talking about mental health, we're talking about physical health, we're talking about spiritual health. So everybody at this table and the arms and legs of our organizations and our comrades, any way you look at it, is focused on getting the root causes and getting the people in our communities to try to figure out how we can help you improve those root causes. Our organization and my organization, the Family and Community Outreach Program, we help people that are in crisis. And it's not, oh, you in crisis, it's I was there, or she was there, or he was there. So if they need whatever to pay their rent so they don't get evicted, if their children need a couple of meal vouchers, these are the things that get back to the root causes. But it's our job as a city, as a state, as a community, with the legislators, with the city council officials, down to the grassroots teams in the community on each side of town, that we work together as a team to remember these are health issues. The Surgeon General declaring it a health crisis, it's a health crisis. So looking at it at any other way and us talking about it in a different narrative is okay, still bringing attention to it, but America itself has ongoing health issues. In Richmond, you said, is it a gun violence? We have a health crisis. We're in a health crisis. And as I said, as a result of going and coming out of the pandemic, we're still trying to improve and get our health together as a community.
And I imagine, Pastor Gilliam, that you can address some of the spiritual health issue crisis.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, the reframing of what is happening is really important, so that we don't, when we look at everything through a crime lens, we approach things a different way, right? We use to play your analogy from earlier, we use hammers when we need to use screwdrivers, right? But when everything is a nail, you got a hammer, right? So, and so understanding that, that this is a holistic health crisis in our city, in our nation, it is finding the ways that, these organizations, the individuals that are working, there's so many people that are on the ground doing like incredible work, just trying to make a difference right in their community, right? And how do we then, the word that came to mind, I was listening to y'all talk, was about scale. Like, how do we scale the relationship building up?
So that's what it seems like we need to do. If these things are working, let's ramp them up.
Yeah, how do we put more money behind it? How do we get more people involved and trained so that we can, how do we get into the churches and have more churches involved in just building the relationships? I think, Mr. Willis, he brought up, Jesus feeding the multitude, man. Jesus ain't preached to them nothing until he met their actual need that they had, right? And there's so many needs that we see in the community, and there's so many people that are meeting these needs, whether they're spiritual needs or relational needs or financial needs, physical needs. Like, we start meeting the needs, that's gonna really open people up to say, all right, now I don't have to worry about where I'm gonna sleep tonight or where my kid is gonna be while I'm trying to work. Because I really do, at the end of the day, wanna have a better life. I don't necessarily wanna be in this situation, but I'm just trying to survive. Again, it's that like survival instinct, and we have to find ways to show up and to scale up the ways that are already in motion.
Well, it sounds like City Council is scaling up the Trauma Healing Response Network with the mayor proposing $750,000. That was a step up, so hopefully it's something like that, I'm guessing, that you can do more of what you do.
The city council members are people that we've known for over a decade. Some of them a little bit longer, some a little bit shorter, but they now know they have the information. They have a lens to see what we're doing, so they're like, oh, we need to partner on this. It's that simple,
Well, so Mark, let me ask you, you talked about your specific neighborhood that, not much has changed, or at least it's as frightening as ever. How would all of this play into your neighborhood? Like, if somebody could say, okay, let's make Mark Whitfield and his family feel secure in their community. We've talked about a lot of interventions. We talked a lot about, applying resources, letting people, helping, whether it's a rent issue, whether it's an acute health issue. How would this play out in your neighborhood? How would we make an impact in your neighborhood?
It all boils back to what all of these guys, like, what y'all doing, all that, like, appreciate it, like, but at the end of the day, everybody at this table is a connector in some way, right? What we gotta start doing is people being disruptors, because it's like we're not being heard. We can go down there and fight City Hall for funding, for this, for that, but it is a funding issue when it comes to these certain programs. They cannot do it by themselves. We can go back, getting somebody out of jail, millions, billions of dollars, right? Throw it into these programs instead of the root causes, the victims. Let's prevent the victims. Like, y'all out here trying to prevent violence. Like, you see somebody, it was you that said you trying to see, you can see somebody before they even get in that situation. You already in a hot zone. All right, let me go try to tap in with this person because I see where they're going down this road. We need more of that. For youth, for instance, y'all go, people like me, victims that's hurting the mental, like y'all, that is so much true. Like, the mental thing is the worst. Like, y'all just don't understand, man, the depression that come with it, because the victims, the surviving victims, deal with it the baddest, bro. And it's like, we need people to tap in like them that's coming around like, hey, look, I'm here. You gotta have somebody to pick you up sometime, because you feel like it's all over. So that make you flip out in your head and go do something crazy, or you just feel like nobody cares. You put it in, what they say, you crawl under that rock. I didn't been there. I didn't had suicidal thoughts because of the trauma, the pain, everything. You just feel like you can't deal. But our programs, these kids that never know nothing about none of these programs, nobody knows because it's not televised. It's not put out there in a way where, oh, we know we can go to the pastor. We know we can go to you. We got children we know how to tap into. We don't have nowhere doing that.
Their feed, they're not looking, scrolling past it.
But you can go look up something negative on the phone, but you won't see these programs because they're not pushing these ads, or it's not funny. They ain't got enough money to put them on the radio. Some of this stuff don't need money. This is supposed to be free. If you out here advertise his program, this program, let people know, tap in, because people not tapped into certain things. That's why I say you gotta go back to being a disruptor. That's what I do. I don't go around, I'm not gonna go to nobody and tell them, put your gun down and do this. I can't tell them that, you know what? If you're gonna look at me, what you gonna do for me?
Why? Why should I listen to you?
It ain't about what I can do for you, it's what you can do for yourself. Look around you, because everybody got somebody they love. So we gotta start holding people accountable. Like, I always know you can't save everybody, but you can take that one person, you can change that person, and that person pay that forward to another person. That's how it works. It's a slow grind. Like you said, sometimes people pick up a nail, it's faster to take that screw. When you know you're supposed to screw it in, but you're gonna take that hammer and hit it in, guess what's gonna happen? Eventually, that's not gonna be stable because you rush through it. Everything take time, but some things do need funding and need backing from the higher ups to help us out. We don't just need you to talk about it. Let's walk the walk with us. See what these guys got going on, because it's real. Like, I know some of the stories you guys hear about victims and you preventative, like you trying to prevent. You got the right ingredients at this table right here. But ask them how much funding they get.
Well, that's always going to be the issue. So let's move into the final phase here. You've already put it eloquently, Mark. What do you want to see going forward, Maurice? What should we do today going forward in terms of whether it's funding, whether it's more people, whether it's putting it on TV? Is anybody still watching TV? We don't even know, but because they're looking at their phones. But what do we do going forward?
Well, we get involved with anybody that's involved, I believe. He just hit it on the head, I believe, too. You know, get it out there. Like, we need more people to know, you know, what's going on so that they can get involved. Because at the end of the day, like, we all are all doing things, but we can't do it ourselves. And like, my job is, you know, once we identify people who are at risk, my job is to connect them to different individuals, you know, different community, you know, people that are able to help them, you know, because real life doesn't, you know, offer everything, but we connect them to everything. So we need more people that are willing to help.
It's amazing, Bill Fitzgerald, that I look around the table, and I don't know if it was strategically done like that or not, but you're looking at all black men, males, role models that are sitting here, that are walking the walk and talking the talk. And I learned that even when you prepare for war in a time of peace, which we're talking, the funding is interesting. I laughed at it, and I say funding because nothing is free out here. You have to pay for the resources. When the Trauma Healing Response Network had to come before City Council to make a presentation, the last comment I remember hearing from Councilwoman Nicole Jones was that the money that we provided to you all for over 30 different organizations was only enough for one of you organizations. That's what she said, not what we said, not what Brother David said. So they recognize it as being able to advocate for it. But
and the scale of the problem. Because if that's only for one organization, and there are 30.
But because of the commitment that you see at this table, which is just a small fragment, because behind each one of us there are a number of other folks that supports and believe in the vision, then we're going to continue to do the work. We were doing the work before the funding was there anyway. So we're going to continue to do it, but I don't want to negate the fact that it is needed. We appreciate every dime, but we do need to have that funding, just like those that are running for political office during this season and time. Each one of them are campaigning for funding so they can get their message out. That's the key to even the elected officials. We want to raise funds so we can be able to get our message out, because getting the message out is not free. So that's
right, and they're not going to show up if they don't know that it's there. So how do you get people who look like me involved in this city? People who live in Richmond, and like you pointed out, we're 5 African American men and me. But it sounds to me like you got to get people in the, well, maybe it's the 1st district, 2nd district, you know, 3rd, like. 5th district. The 5th district. How do we do that?
I use that as an example because I'd say that it's just by the grace of God, but it's not I know you used the narrative of how you get someone like me.
Because I say that because I feel like somebody could watch this and say, hey, that should affect me. Let's go back. Yeah, let me go back to my phone.
No. When I get a call, it doesn't say a black man got shot. It doesn't, unless you get it. But when I get a call, Trauma Heal, whether it's on behalf of United Communities Against Crime or Trauma Healing Response Network, it says we have had gunfire. It don't say it was a black person got, it don't say. So whether we go to the West End, where the young man was killed in the VCU area, we are there. Whether we go to the North Side area in Washington Park, it don't matter whether we go in the East End side. And then a lot of times, I'm almost sure everyone at this table have been called, whether it was in Richmond, Chesterfield, Henrico, Hanover, Goochland. We get the calls, and we don't get to choose where we go. We just go. So you are correct. It's a unique fabric here, but it does extend beyond. And there are, I'll make it clear, there are others of different race, because I'm constantly, matter of fact, when I leave here today, I got to go meet with a Hispanic group because they want a community outreach. So it doesn't stop.
You've got what works, and that's the bottom line, is when you show up, the healing, the helping, the maybe the changing of lives in the better direction happens, and that's what City Council has recognized, David. So it sounds like you all have the parts of the program that are in place, all 30 groups, rise up among them, that's what we need to be focused on. You've shown City Council you get results, and that's what we should back.
Yeah, I want to answer your question, Bill. What would like to see and what is needed is we need to continue to build relationships. Mm-hmm. Like there are gangs in the city, but you got people that leave where they live in a $600,000 home community that go to the area where people live in the projects because they got friends that are in gangs. And it's not about a judgmental thing. It's about that we need to continue to build relationships and focus on wellness. And I know that can be broad and it can sound broad, but it's about breaking down barriers. You know what I mean? We have people in our network, people that are pastors, that are deacons, that are church leaders, and we got people that are non-religious. We have people that are educators and people that are not traditionally educated, but they go in the community and they get their work done and they help people prevent themselves from going off the deep end and being in mental health crisis. So it's breaking the barriers down and then figuring out how to be a team so we can focus on the health crisis and not judge each other based on what you do or don't do, what I do or don't do, and how we can all figure out what each other's job is and support that. City Council can support somebody that doesn't know anything about political stature and City Council advocacy. And I can support somebody that is only focused on elders who are dealing with Alzheimer's disease. It's just figuring out we can speak the same language if we first build a relationship.
Extremely well said. Pastor, I'll give you the final word on the topic.
I want to go back to what Mark said about being a disruptor, because what you just described is disrupting. It's breaking down barriers is disrupting, and I think that's really important in this whole process. Is how do I make sure that everything I got going on in the trauma response, my folks know in my church, so that they can carry it into their communities and say, oh yeah, I heard my pastor talking about this, because some of that work, some of the best advertising is word of mouth, right? And then they're able to share that in the communities and the networks that they're in. And that's one way that we disrupt, but we also disrupt by making sure that all of these organizations at the table, all of the ones that are in our communities, that we able to come together and know what everybody is working on, know what everybody offers, understand what folks are doing in their particular lane, so that we can then use that connective tissue that we talked about, that we have, the networks that we have, and broaden our networks so that our young people, our elders, whoever, everybody can feel safe, everybody can live healthy, everybody can move towards a holistically safe past surviving into a thriving life. And so that takes the whole community, elected officials and the cats on the corner. It takes everybody to make that happen.
Well, that is an eloquent way to sum up. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you for your good work, especially. You're out there, you're the boots on the ground. Let's hope this makes a small modicum of a difference, but I hope you all let me know when there's something going on that we should know about, because
I feel like at the end of the day, we need to just start back like it was like when I was growing up. They got rid of, it's all about the policies being made too. Nobody's speaking about that. These guys sit down there, I can sit in downtown for hours, 8 hours, like I'm working there, just listening to laws and bills being passed. Right now, somebody passing a bill, and it's gonna affect us a year from now, right? So what they do, they down there passing money around, advocating this fund or that, like they wanna donate to you, but they're gonna give you enough just for one, and they know they need more, right? But they ready to give these people $1 billion, bro, to free criminals, right? But you're trying to be on the preventative thing, like, all right, we believe in prison reform, but why are we freeing the criminals that we're out here trying to prevent the other people trying to? It don't make sense to me. So it's like beating a dead horse sometimes. And it's like, what are y'all doing? Y'all say y'all for us, we're gonna support you, but then we're gonna backdoor you and sign this bill to go against you. And that's what they doing. So it's like, you playing it both sides of the fence because you wanna satisfy your constituents over here and mine's over here. I watch them do this. They use me like a pawn, but I'm using this. I'm sitting back watching. I'm like, why I gotta go talk to you? Why you want a meeting with me when you just see me with them? But I remember you from last year. You was with me, but now you mad at me because I'm over here. I get the game, but that's the game. When I was growing up, they had something called Richmond Career Redevelopment, right? And that took us out the streets, man. Like, we was in the streets, but it gave us jobs. It took us it was right down Broad Street. You go in there, had computers, you had a pastor, you had mental. Bro, that taught me structure. And they couldn't fund it no more. Let's defund that, right? We don't know. What happened to all the Boys and Girls Club? They're slowly closing them down. Oh, we don't have funding for that, right? It's like, why all the stuff that you're taking away is affecting us later. That's why I really focus on children, because you know what? I can't go get a grown man to change his ways. But that kid, I'm looking at the future. I'm thinking ahead of the game. Because that little 10-year-old, he's gonna be 16 in a little while. And he's gonna be the one right here holding the gun if he don't get no structure in him. Because they going off what they see. All you do is go outside, man. I'm telling you, I told the chief of police at the time, William, and all of them, before all that crap went down, I told him, I ain't never get to talk to this chief, but I want y'all to do a plain clothes day. Put on, dress like me, dress like him. Come out in the hood, walk through. Don't put on no badge and no, because they see that, you automatically, even for my pastors, I love religion, nothing against it, but we can't go out with no, we gotta look like them, talk like them. That's why people connect with me, because I'm not coming to put on no suit and talk to you. I'm gonna talk to you just like I talk to anybody else, because it's real. We live this, so you can't go to nobody. I can't offer the drug dealer, stop selling drugs. No, I gotta have something to offer him. Man, look, I got pastor, and I got him, they got this program, bro, and they might get you in here doing this. You want a CDL, help these guys get out of the streets, because it goes back to what I started with, drugs. Don't everybody knows, no, it's gun battle. No, all this stuff together. Because if a drug dealer, you gotta have the drugs, the gun, protection, right? Money, power. This country's built off it. And it's like, everybody turn a green eye to it. And it pissed me off sometimes, because you sit up there and you see these election time coming around, everybody wanna be your friend. And you be like, okay, all right, yeah, I'm gonna see you. You don't see them no more. Once the camera's lights over, it's over. Yeah.
Day after the election.
But guess who's still out there? These guys still out here fighting, man, like.
But you know, these children in this city, you know, they'll be better off as long as stuff like this happens, where we get to come together and have I've seen you before, because I'm a teacher too, you know what I mean? I taught in Henrico County and taught in Richmond, but I never met you. So I'm grateful to be able to, you know what I mean, to hear, and I don't know, I may have taught one of your children, who knows?
That's crazy.
But, you know, the thing is I respect and value anybody who's child-centered and advocating for these children's development in this city.
Well, thank you all for spending the time today. I'm very grateful.
Thank you.